To me, it does. Yeah, and I'm sure every author is going to come at it from a different angle, but I think I've been doing role-playing games since I was like 10 years old, right? And so 30 years of doing that helps for me, among other things, to think about pacing, right? Because when you've got a table of 5 or 6 people, and you don't want them to get bored, right? And so you have this sense of like, okay, it's time for me to drop something interesting to get their attention again. I need to do something to keep hooking them. There needs to be some development that is dramatic or funny or terrifying or puts something at risk to keep them coming back for more. And it's the same thing in a book.
Everybody, welcome back to the Living the Next Chapter podcast. I remember what show I'm on. And I'm excited to have Dave here with me. Like, what's better than one Dave? How about 2? Now, when I'm looking at Dave on the screen, I have like scruff, and that's about the extent of what I can do. Dave's got this glorious, like, grab it, hold on to it, kind of run your fingers through it beard, and he looks just like a sage. Like, I like that. I need to sit up straight. I need to sit right. You like that?
The
sage?
Great Sage.
I can sit up straight because Dave's here, and not only that, Dave's a teacher, so now I need to pay attention. He's going to slap my fingers with something. So
we don't get to do that
I'm
anymore.
excited to have him, right?
We don't get to do that anymore. We get in trouble if we do that.
Used to throw like chalk brushes.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Or chalk when you get pinged right in the head. But yeah, I can't do that anymore.
Nope.
Dave's here. So we're going to go back and forth, the 2 Daves. We're going to be talking about writing and all the things that Dave's up to. Now, the one thing that Dave has that I don't have is he is an author, and I'm excited to have him on the show. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Come on. All right. Yeah. So I'm jealous of the beard.
Thank you.
I got to just put that out there. If I put it out there, I can move on. So congratulations. Beautiful. Well done. Dave, tell everybody where you are in this big world of ours.
Sure. I live in Connecticut, in New England in the United States of America, right? And I teach in Connecticut, and I write from Connecticut. Yeah.
Cool. What's your student age group? What are you teaching?
Seniors. I teach seniors, and I teach film as literature.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. What's a class like for that? That sounds interesting. They didn't teach me that in high school. Come on.
No, it's I've seen it in 1 or 2 schools, but it's not particularly common. It's more common as a college course, right? As an undergrad course. But yeah, so right now I just started a new unit, and we're doing Campbell's monomyth, The Hero's Journey. And so we've got a selection of movies. I let the kids vote on them. We're gonna watch things like Moana and Star Wars and The Matrix and all these sorts of things.
Come on, like that's a class?
Yeah.
Jeez, man. Come on. Why did I miss out on this? Have you done Princess Bride?
That's actually one of the options for this unit.
Oh, that's a story.
Yep.
I love that story.
It's so good.
I really do. That's what I would be my choice if I was in your class, Dave. A, people wonder why there's an old guy in your class, but 2, I would pick the Princess Bride.
Several of the classes have voted for it. I know we're going to be watching it in a couple of classes. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, one of the greatest sword fights ever.
That's what I tell them when I'm selling them on it. I say it's one of the best sword fights on film, and it's got Andre the Giant. Like, what's not to love?
And no more rhyming.
I mean it.
I mean it. Does anybody want a peanut? Right? Yes. I love that. And the sword fighting coaches for that sword fight were the ones from Star Wars.
Yes.
So there you go.
Yep.
So that's a thing. I was listening to an audiobook of Princess Bride from the main character.
Okay.
Who played Wesley.
Yep.
And it was spectacular. It was so good because he talked about stuff that happened on the set, and all of the things of all the characters in there. What a great ensemble, right?
There's been a couple, I'm trying to remember what year it was exactly, but there was somewhere around the 30th anniversary, there was like a Vanity Fair big photo spread, an article, an interview, and so there were a couple of things that came out with the surviving actors because a couple of people have died, right? But so there were a lot of sort of behind the scenes stories that came out, and one of my favorite ones is Mandy. I hope I say his name right. Patinkin.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and so Andre the Giant was French, right, and so his native language was not English, and so he would sometimes have difficulty acting the lines, right, and on the one hand he's trying to get the lines out, but then getting the emotion. Right. And so there is this moment that Mandy talks about where Fezzik was supposed to be angry. And so in between takes, he just reaches out and slaps Andre the Giant in the face. Can you imagine doing that? This guy could crush your head.
Ladder,
right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much in there to love. What a great class to teach. Like,
oh yeah, it's fun.
How do you get signed up for that as a teacher? Because everyone else is teaching gym class or home ec or whatever, and here you are teaching like, hey, let's watch a movie and talk about this. This is so cool.
I got really lucky. I mean, I was looking for a job as a teacher 13 years ago or so, right? And I happened to interview in the town of Wolcott, which is where I teach right now. And whoever had just left had this class, and it was a brand new class. Like, they had just written the curriculum. I don't even think they've taught a year yet. And so they were like, we need to send someone to come in and teach, 3 sessions of this class and then some juniors, right?
Yeah.
So I did it, and then I've basically done it ever since. And as the years have gone on, it's become so popular as a senior class that now I've got 5 sessions of it, and I have like 120 something kids.
Wow.
It's great right up until I have to grade all the papers, which are coming in over this weekend and into Monday.
That sounds like a fun class to teach. And I'm sure the kids are like interested in the topic, and it's like something they can identify with. Talk about taking your work home with you for your homework. Go home, everyone, and watch Star Wars. Oh, really? Like, that's my homework? Okay. Mom, I'm doing my homework. Yeah, no, you're watching Star Wars. Dave told me, Teacher Dave told me I have to do it. So,
and we have this service, and it's got the craziest name. Are you ready?
Okay.
So our library media specialist signs up for various databases and things like that. And so there's a movie database called Swank.
Swank. That almost sounds like you shouldn't be using this. Swank.
But so as a school, if you sign up for it, you can not only stream all the movies on this database, you check them out basically every year.
Oh.
But you also get a link, and the kids can take it home on their their school Chromebooks, and they can load up the movie through the database and they can watch it.
That sounds swanky.
Yeah.
Right? I guess it's living up to its name. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing we were chatting about before we came on, which I found really intriguing, and I don't know why I've never asked any of my guests in the past this, is from a reader's perspective, when I buy a book on Amazon, for example, I prefer to buy them in person at a bookstore, but when I buy them on Amazon, I don't know what happens. And there's a lot of different components. I always talk on this show how important it is to leave a review. And if you purchase the book, it's a verified review, which is even like a level up. But I really have no idea what you as an author see on the back end of Amazon that encourages you, kind of monitors your sales. I'm just curious for a new author that's listening, Dave, and they don't really understand what Amazon and what the dashboard looks like. Is there like a couple things that you'd suggest to an author listening when they set up their Amazon page that they should kind of pay attention to? Because a couple things you brought out that, as I'm hearing you talk, this is something we should talk to the authors about and just encourage them to keep their eye on these things. What do you look at? What's important?
So I guess one of the first things to say, and I don't think I said this to you before, is that there's a real difference depending on whether you're through a publisher or self-publishing on what you see.
Okay.
And if you have books that are in both categories, you get different information.
Okay.
Right. So if something is through a publisher, so my current series is through Mango Media and through Podium for audio, right? I don't get anything except what you can see yourself with like 2 exceptions, right? And the 2 exceptions are whatever the publisher shares with you, right? And if you have to kind of go out and do this in your dashboard, if you merge it in with all your other books as it's under your author account, then you can see these little graphs that Amazon gives you. And they give you graphs based on the ranking on Amazon. So you don't see copies sold, you don't see money earned, right? But you see these, graphs that go up and down and spike.
Yeah. Okay.
And they break it out by categories. So like ebook, paperback, audiobook, what have you. But then other than that, all you see are, you can load up your page just like anyone else, and you can see the reviews and the star ratings and the category rankings and things like that. And then your publisher, depending on your publisher and how communicative they are, right? You might get a statement in 4 months, right? Or 3 months. And then it shows up and you log in and you look at your statement and you see a royalty statement, right? or if it's a very communicative publisher, I have a guy from Mango, right, that every Monday has a check-in with me, and I can say, how are we doing?
Good.
Right. And so we're both on Discord, and we just have like this chat every Monday. But every publisher is different. Right. And I suspect, though I don't have enough experience to know for certain, that the sort of the bigger the publisher, the less personal interaction you're going to have, and right. But then if you self-publish through Amazon, you do get a different amount of information. You get this dashboard that you can go to for KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, right?
Yep.
And by default, it'll give you a readout for the last 30 days, where you'll see by each day kind of like these bars of how much money you've made, right? And it's the royalties estimator. You can also choose to look at orders, or you can choose to look at Kindle Unlimited pages read, right? And so you get these pieces of data. And you can break it out, and you can go farther back, and you can the last 90 days, you can look at the last year, you can look at et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they color code your books, and you can see how you've done month to month, and all that sort of thing.
One question, the Kindle version, like I'm comparing this to podcasting. In podcasting, we can see on some players if our listeners are listening to the end of the podcast. And listening to the end of the podcast is a signal to the apps and the hosting that this is a good episode, because people come and stay to the end. They don't leave like 10 seconds into the podcast. Yep. So that's something that I always encourage listeners of podcasts. If you love the show, listen to the end, because that's going to signal, hey, this is a good episode. And everyone that comes here stays to the end. Does Kindle reward authors, or is there a benefit to authors for us to read the book to the very end on Kindle rather than like reading half of it and then just never coming back? Does that play in at all for you as an author?
All it does is give us page count.
Okay.
Right, how many pages have been read, and you get paid based on the pages read.
Oh, so that's okay.
Right. So the benefit is that the more pages you read, the more I make.
Oh, right? Okay. So everyone listening, I'll look at your Kindle and look at those 25 books you haven't finished yet, and go, yeah. Is there a time frame? Or it can, like, I read like 3 chapters, come back a year from now and read the rest of the book, and you still get paid then?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yep. And then the rate changes. The rate changes based on the subscribers every month, and there's like this complicated formula, and they put it out every month. And there are authors that pay attention to it, and I don't.
So as a reader, everyone, for your Kindle device, as you read, make sure when you're talking to Dave's book specifically, you're reading all the way to the end. Same for audiobooks. If I listen to the end of the audiobook, does it track that?
I have less information for audio.
Oh, really? Okay.
I haven't self-published audio. I have a friend who did. Actually, you had him on. Ben Shankman's done his own audio, right? But I've never done my own audio. I've either done through Tant or through Podium, and I have no idea. Okay. I can see the reviews, right? I can get royalty statements, but I don't know I don't know what sort of data looks like for them.
So my suggestion, if you're a young author, a new author, and you're setting up your Amazon and you have questions, or you just want to meet a guy with a really great beard, either way, or you want to talk about Princess Bride, that Dave would love to chat with you. I'm sure he'll send you an email with a couple questions. Yeah. You'd be okay with that, Dave?
Yeah, sure. Excellent. Absolutely.
There you go. So we'll have the links for Dave in the show notes. As an author, you're like, I don't know who to turn to. I can tell you Dave's a great guy to talk to. So, and
there's a couple of good communities to go to also.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Is it off the top of your head?
Yeah, there's so depending on what you're doing, right? If you're self-publishing, there's a self-publish subreddit.
Okay.
That's just r/self-publish. Okay. That has a lot of people on it. There's also a r/writing.
Okay.
Right. That's more
good.
general.
Easy. Yeah.
If you get to the point, and this one's a little tougher, and I don't know other genres, right? But if you get to the point that you can prove certain levels of income, and I think you can even join as like an associate member without proving income, you can join the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America Guild, and there's a Discord, which has a ton of people. Like I'm on it. There's a ton of people that you can talk to with all kinds of questions about basically everything. Whether it from contracts to publishers and what's a scam and what isn't a scam, and it's how you get in for the Nebula Awards, right? If you want to get nominated for the Nebula Awards, right?
Nice, lots of great advice. It's good. I like resources, Dave. I like to give people something practical that they can take with them and use right away. So Excellent. Good resource. I'm glad I asked you. Because again,
I'll give you as many as I can. As it comes up, we'll give you a bunch. Yeah.
Okay, good. I have no idea why I've never asked anybody this before, but you were like sharing some great insights, and I'm like, oh, we got to talk to the people listening. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so let's jump into your author journey. For the readers that are here, they're probably never going to write a book, but they love finding an author to fall in love with, and you have a lot to love.
Thank you.
How did you start? Like, how did you start your stories? How did you start writing from a place of pleasure more than, creating work for you, for the students in your school? How did this part come for you?
Well, I've loved to read and write basically as long as I can remember, and I can give my mother a lot of credit for that. We had a huge amount of books in the house when I was growing up, science fiction and fantasy and classics and all sorts of other things. And I can remember when she went back to college that she took a creative writing class and she was trying to write a book. And I can remember reading it. She banged it out on a typewriter, right? And I was reading this. So I've loved it forever. But then, how do you make a living, right? So I went to school and I got a degree to teach. And I did that, starting from about 2010 on. I've been teaching. But at a certain point, certainly in Connecticut, you need to get a master's, right? And the requirements may be different from state to state, but I think I had like 7 years or something. I don't remember what it was exactly from when I got my first full-time teaching job that I had to have a master's in. But they don't really care what the master's is in so much, right? I mean, it can be education, but it can be your subject. It can be, there's a certain amount of leeway as long as you do the paperwork and you give it to your local district and they say, thumbs up, right? We'll count this. So I was looking around and I don't even remember where it came from. It may have been a piece of junk mail in my teacher mailbox because you get all these, all this junk. And there was this program through Farley Dickinson for creative writing for teachers. Right. And so I said, I'm gonna do this. Right. I'd rather do this than several other things that I can think of. And so I did this degree and I was kind of crazy to do it looking back. I don't know how I possibly did it. I had at the time, like a 2 or 3 year old son, and I was working full time, and I somehow banged out a master's in about a year and a half.
Wow.
And I don't know how I did.
Wow.
But I can remember like going to Starbucks to write, and all sorts of different things. It's just anytime you could find, you were writing. And, by the end of this master's, you had to turn in, 100-something page portfolio, and you did not screenplay, like a play, right? Script for a play. There was poetry, there was essays, there was short stories, there was just all sorts of different stuff. And at the end, you turn it all in. And as I was doing this, I had this idea for a science fiction novel. And in between classes, I would take the laptop out and like sit down on the grass or something, or, after I was done doing whatever work I needed to turn in, and I would be banging out chapters. And whenever there would be a professor lecturing about, creative writing, there would be something I could use. I would try to take some piece that I could use to move forward. And I really had very little idea what I was doing, right? Because it was my first book. And I had even less idea what to do once it was done, right?
Yeah.
Because then that's the big step. And that ended up being the first novel I self-published, which was A Sea Cold and Deep. And I shopped it around to a couple of agents, but this was during COVID. It was like right in the middle of COVID. And the Boston Writing Conference was the one I did, and it was a COVID year, so it was all virtual. And so you were signing up on this schedule to have video calls with agents to pitch your stuff over the course of a weekend or something like that. And you got, like 20 minutes or something to talk to each agent. And it was
nice.
It was
speed dating.
It was so, well, yeah, right. It's like a combination of speed dating and like applying for jobs and horribly stressful.
Yeah.
At least I thought it was. So I became aware of Kindle Unlimited around the same time, and I was trying it out, and I realized that I could just put it out myself, right? So I did that, but I had no idea how to market anything, or how to find readers. But that was the beginning, right? And we've moved forward from there, and that was, when did When did I do that? Looks to me like 2022.
Wow.
So that was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So the idea for that story in particular, The Sea Cold and Deep, where did the idea, the concept of the story arc for that one come from then?
It came in a lot of pieces. I had this idea I'd been fascinated by the moon of Europa, and which is a moon of Jupiter, and that we're fairly confident has an icy surface. And so several scientists have speculated that there could be water or oceans beneath the ice, right? And so this seemed like a really cool setting for a science fiction novel. And at the time I was writing it, every time I would see some sort of new breaking technological development or story come up on Facebook or Reddit or anywhere, I'd be like saving these articles and tagging them, right? Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, this is cool. I can use this. I can use this. I can use this. And so I set myself a rule that I was only going to use technology that I could figure out at least some basis in current theory or breaking developments for, all right? And that I was going to sort of stay within that sandbox and not have anything outside of that. So it's on the harder end of science fiction, though I always feel a little self-conscious saying that, because when I think of hard science fiction authors, I think of people who were actually scientists, right? A lot of these guys back in World War II who worked for the Navy and stuff, like Heinlein and Asimov and all these guys, had real experience in this stuff. And I don't, but I tried to be on the harder end of science fiction.
Awesome. So that was your first release book then for us as readers, right?
Yeah.
How many books do you have currently for readers to fall in love with?
We have 6 out right now and a 7th coming in a month.
Wow.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
Do your books have some kind of common tie across all of them? Or like for a reader, like should they be starting with A Sea and Cold Deep and kind of following your journey as an author? Where's a good starting point then?
I mean, I think that I've, like anything, you want to be getting better as you go.
Yeah.
Right. You want to be improving your craft. And that sounds almost like not very humble to say, right? But I would recommend people start with the current series because I do think it's the best thing I've written so far.
Okay.
Right. And it's what's coming out right now. And it's the first series that I've managed to have publishing deals with, which is so exciting. And so I'm very much hoping forward that the series has like a real future to it.
Okay.
Right. And it's really exciting to be doing it right now. So like that's where I push people. And then if you liked that, right, if you are someone who likes fantasy, then you could go back to my earlier trilogy, which is the Fairy Night trilogy. And if you're someone who likes science fiction, you could look at Sea Cold and Deep.
Okay. Your current series, are they standalone, or do we need to read them in order? Where do we start there?
You should definitely read them in order.
Oh, okay. All right.
You
Good.
should definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a fantasy series that starts with a young girl named Liv, who starts basically about 6 years old, and it progresses forward through her life until I think in the current books she's somewhere around 19 or 20, basically.
Okay.
Right. And it's going to go further from there, but I think you would be a little confusing to skip around between the age groups. And it was originally written as a piece of serial fiction. So it goes chapter to chapter to chapter to chapter as the books go on, and then it's split up into books for publication.
So the Guild Mage, so Apprentice is the first in the series then?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit. Let's focus in on these, because the one that's pre-order right now, that's Coral Bay. Is that right?
Yep, Coral Bay.
Okay.
Yep, that's the third one. Yep.
Okay.
And at some point soon, we're going to have the fourth one up for pre-order, but I don't know exactly when.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Lots and lots to go. Okay. I love the covers, by the way. They're beautiful. I can see. They are. Like, is that something you have input into, or is that done by your team? Like, where does this come from? Like, they're beautiful.
So it's right. So working with a publisher, right,
yeah.
And actually working with 2 publishers, which makes it slightly more complicated. So everyone at both Podium and Mango has been wonderful, right? So it's not difficult. It's just that there's more people in the email thread,
yeah.
right? So we start with Mango, and I send them. First of all, I send them the manuscript, right? And while that's going through the editor, then we start to talk about cover concepts. And they give me sort of a guideline for the genre, right? Which is that for the genre they're trying to sell and sort of the market they're trying to sell to, they want a cover that's actiony, right? That's got some sort of like fighting or magic or something that's going on that's visceral and active, right? And that furthermore, because so much is online sales and on phones and iPads and things like that on Amazon, that there's a practical limit to how many characters you can have on a piece of art.
Oh.
Right? So not necessarily something I would have thought of, but basically you've got to imagine that someone's looking at a little box that's, maybe an inch and a half by, an inch or something like that. And that's the size of the art. So you can't have something that's super, super intricate. So basically what I'm told is like 2 detailed figures is good. It can be stretched to 3, but then anything past that, right, is too much. You can have like a horde of undead or something, which we did for book 4, right? But you can't have a ton of intricate, detailed characters because it just won't. It'll just look like a mess when you look at it in a small thing. So you start by sort of thinking like, okay, so these are my requirements, right? I need like an action scene from this book that hopefully isn't too spoilery, that only and that has, within this number of people. And then I also don't want it to look repetitive for the previous previous covers, right? You don't want them to all be cookie cutter exactly the same. So you write up a kind of a little blurb and you send it off. And actually we've been mostly doing 2 covers at a time, that I'll send off 2 concepts to the artist, whose name is Ben Moran, right? And so if you like the art, you can go look him up on DeviantArt or anything like that, right? Because he's out there. And I don't communicate with him directly at all. Like I talk to the publisher and the publisher talks to him because they employ the artist, not me, right? But what they do send me is they send me sketches and works in progress, and then they ask for feedback. And a lot of the time, I shouldn't even say a lot, basically every time I immediately take it to the Discord community.
Oh,
right?
That's
right.
great.
So we have both a Discord and a Patreon community. So I'll put it on Patreon, and then Patreon's hooked into Discord. So you there's a bot on Discord that hooks you to Patreon, and anyone who joins the Patreon gets like an invite to the Discord, and you get a role to go with your subscription. And so I'll be like, okay, so here's the concept art for 5. What do you guys think? And
smart,
right? They'll give me all sorts of feedback, and then I'll send that back to the publisher, and then it'll go back and forth, and then you end up with a cover.
That's a key point, I think, for authors that are listening too, Dave, is that building in public and having people come along on the journey instead of hiding behind a curtain and then just one day pulling it around from the curtain, go, my new book is here. And everybody's like, oh, I didn't even know you were writing this one. It's like, take them on the journey with you, and you'll get input, you'll get buy-in, and anticipation builds over time, right?
And that works really well for the writing as well for me.
Yeah.
It's sort of like open development model, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah.
Because all the chapters go up on Patreon first, and then people are talking about them on Discord.
Nice.
It drops whenever I finish writing the first draft of the chapter, and they're immediately like, you got typos here. Right? I got to go in and fix them, yeah. Right. But I mean, before it ever even goes to the publisher, you've got feedback already from all these people. And so like, I mean, on the Discord, how many people do I have on this Discord? Does it give me a number somewhere? I don't know. I think I've got a couple hundred at least on the Discord. Nice. I don't know exactly how many, right?
That's good.
And so you get all this feedback.
So giving your audience advance vision into what you're writing, does that actually turn around and help you with your editors to give them a better edited, thought through work? Does that kind of benefit
like
you?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it does, because any mistake I make, they're going to pick up on.
Yeah.
If I use the wrong name somewhere, or they'll say, "Oh, that character is actually had brown hair," and I've forgotten because it was 200 chapters ago. But they know, right? Yeah. And so it really helps to tie everything together and to make it make sense. And I don't know if every author thinks this way, right? Have you in your other conversations, have you talked to authors about this sort of the 2 categories of pantser versus plotter?
Yeah, that's come up before. Yeah. Again, not being a non-author host here, I I go back and forth as to what my approach would be if I was writing, hypothetically, because I don't have an answer to this question. But yeah, that's really intriguing because they seem to be all one, but not a combination of both. Usually they seem to be one or the other.
I'm definitely on the pantser end.
Okay.
I do a lot of prep ahead of time in terms of building a world and building characters. And I have like extensive notes on the world, and I have ideas of where I want the story to go. And I have usually a running list of bullet points. And when I finish each book, I start a new Google document, and I take the old list of bullet points and I copy paste it over, and then I delete everything that I don't need anymore. And then I keep adding to this new list of bullet points. And if it gets complicated enough, which it has for some book climaxes, I pull out note cards, right? Just like normal, right?
Yeah.
Note cards. And I break down chapters on the note cards, and then I can rearrange them if I need to. But that's only when something gets really complicated and order of events builds into usually a pretty complicated climax, right? I had to do that certainly for book 6. I'll try not to get too spoilery, but I had like a 4 different point of view war going on, right, for this battle. And so I had to know who was where and how they were responding to the things that were happening around them. So I needed a more in-depth system of organization. But because I'm a pantser, and because I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I've done a lot of tabletop role-playing games over the years.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I'm kind of used to listening to the players in those games and getting ideas about what they like and what they don't like and what they want to see more of, and then incorporating that into what I do. And I do the same thing for readers, right? If they glom onto a character and love a character, and I'm like, well, I could probably give that character more screen time.
Right.
Right. I could expand their role if people are liking that character or that relationship. If people are curious about some aspect of the world, then I can delve into it in more. I can look for an opportunity to delve into it in more detail.
It's interesting. One thing I love is that you could reach over and just pull up those cards. They're like within arm's reach of our conversation today. That's a good sign because that's not made up, everyone. He just reached over, grabbed the cards, and showed me. So they're right there in front of him. The whole idea of these tabletop role games and stuff, I've had multiple people on the show, and that was their origin story of writing. But they didn't get into these games to be a writer. It was more of a result of being in the games that the ideas started coming.
Well, and I think so many of us probably started reading fantasy and science fiction, fell in love with it, and then wanted to be in that world. And so we played things like Dungeons and Dragons and what have you, right? And then that, builds your exposure to the genre, and it's things happen simultaneously. Are you aware of the sort of like the indie press sort of game lit or lit RPG thing that's going on online?
Not really.
Okay, so this is...
Come on.
Okay, so this is... Let me unveil this corner of the internet to you, right?
I love this.
So there is this genre that is really big on Kindle Unlimited and web novels and Audible that really takes people who love role-playing games, whether it's tabletop role-playing games, computer role-playing games, things like that. And there's a lot of intersection with people who love like anime and manga, right? And fuses it into these stories that have deliberate attempts to evoke the feeling of, like playing a game, right? Where some of them go so far as to have like Dungeons and Dragons character sheets, basically, right? Like level 20 fighter and what have you. But others, it's just sort of an attempt to evoke that feeling of like, well, okay, it's Saturday night and we're getting together with our friends and we're going to have another adventure and we want to sort of feel like that, right? And it's very interesting. The one that has crossed over probably the best right now and is really popular and trending online and is crossed over to bookstores is Dungeon Crawler Carl. I don't know if you've heard of that one or not.
No, I haven't.
You should look it up because it's an indie published book that is now in Barnes and Noble in hardcover, and it's making a big splash, and it's opening up the genre to a lot of people who wouldn't have otherwise heard about it.
The role playing games and the gameplay, being that you're living in a story in real time, playing the game, Do you find that skill and being able and having that experience becomes a tool in your toolbox when you start writing so that your readers enter into your story in a similar fashion?
To me, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure every author is going to come at it from a different angle, but I think I've been doing role-playing games since I was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And so 30 years of doing that helps for me, among other things, to think about pacing.
Okay.
Right. Because when you've got a table of 5 or 6 people,
right,
and you don't want them to get bored. Right. And so you have this sense of like, okay, it's time for me to drop something interesting to get their attention again. I need to do something to keep hooking them. There needs to be some development that is dramatic or funny or terrifying or puts something at risk to keep them coming back for more. And it's the same thing in a book.
Right. And see, that's interesting because I think if you don't have that experience as a writer and as an author, you don't have that gear that you can switch into and go, okay, the story's kind of lagging here. I need to go this direction. Because of my experience in gameplay, I would anticipate that the story's going to make a turn. And if I come to writing and I don't have that experience, that's a muscle I would have to develop while I'm writing. You already have it developed. It's just about whether or not you're going to use it in this situation.
Yep. And, in traditional publishing, you would have a developmental editor.
Yeah.
Who would go through it and who would say, I don't know if people know about, there's different types of editors, right? Yeah. So there's developmental editors that are broad stroke story, and there's editors that are on proofreading and grammar and all those sorts of things, right? And a developmental editor is the sort of person whose job it is to dig into the story and say, it's lagging in these middle chapters right here. Right. You need to do something, right? My understanding is that there is less and less of that available to authors, right? Yeah. So if you are self-publishing, you only have what you pay for.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have the money, the thousands of dollars to hire multiple rounds of editors, right?
True, yeah.
But even if you are traditional publishing or through a small press, it really depends on what potential they see in you. There are some I want to say I was talking to 4 publishers about Guild Mage, right? And only one of them talked about developmental editing at all. The other, right, and the other one said, for the most part, said, well, it's clear that people are already enjoying it because you've got, almost 7,000 followers, right? So you don't need a developmental editor. We just want a copy editor. And it lets them push it out quicker, and it lets them save on costs.
Yeah.
Right. But my understanding is that there's less and less resources for some of these things unless you're already sort of a big name author, or they think that you're going to be a big name author. And you can see this in covers too.
Yeah.
Do you know Jenny Wirtz?
No.
She wrote fantasy. Well, she's still around, right? I don't know if you ever read anything by Raymond Feist. He had a whole fantasy series called the Rift War Saga, and she wrote a trilogy within that world, co-authored with him. Okay. And she was also at various points a cover artist. And she had put up a whole thing. I don't remember which Reddit community it was on, but she was on a couple of months ago talking about the change in cover art for fantasy and science fiction. And that if you went back 30 years from now, right, if you went back to 1995, that you would go into Barnes & Noble and every fantasy you would pick up would have like characters and a landscape and monsters and, like a full scene. And a lot of what you look at now is often a sort of like maybe like a symbol, right? And then a nice fancy font, but that it's not painted cover art. And that essentially it's an expense that can be cut. It costs more to hire a painter to paint a cover.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them are not doing it anymore.
Or they're pushing a button and AI is just going to make it for them. They're like, all right, I pushed a button. I'm creative. Well, you're good at pushing buttons. You got that. That's good. Congratulations.
Yep.
Yeah. I love the covers of your books. The colors just
Thank you.
Stand off the page. And then that whole thing about don't judge a book by its cover. I'm like, shouldn't we? Shouldn't we be looking at a cover going, this makes me want to read this book? I don't know.
It's your first piece of marketing.
Right.
Right? The first thing that people see is the cover. And if it doesn't hook them, they're going to look at the next one.
Right.
Yeah. So it does. It matters a lot. Yeah.
I don't know if we need to retire that phrase. I don't know.
I mean, it's as a metaphor, it's an interesting metaphor.
Yeah.
Certainly, if you're looking at how you want to judge people, right?
Right.
That you don't want to judge by appearances and you want to get to know someone. But I mean, from the point of view of trying to get a book out to readers,
Yeah.
your cover really does matter. You know, you can't. It matters a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
the title too. Yeah.
So for readers then, for Guild Mage, kind of give us the overview then, because I want to touch on this. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I want readers to go, this is for me, and I know someone else that's going to love this series. So let's talk to the readers and give them the 101 introductory welcome speech talk about this series. Let's bring them in so they feel really welcome with this series.
So for me, what hooked me into writing this, the concept, like the kernel, the nugget that had me go forward and write this, was I had seen and read over the years so many classic fantasy series where, you know, there would be an elf or a dwarf or what have you, these sort of classic trope fantasy races that live longer than humans. And though there's some examination of that, like Tolkien examines this with Arwen, right, that she lingers after her husband, but very rarely is it from the point of view of the longer lived character. Like they're often in a party with humans or what have you, and that it's the humans that are the main characters. Right. And I was like, I want to explore what it would be like, right, to be someone who ages more slowly and to be part of this culture that is that watches the humans you care about grow old and die, right? And so I came up with this kernel of an idea of I have this little girl who's the daughter of the castle cook in this medieval castle, and it's a single mother, right? She doesn't know who her father is, but she's different than all the other kids, right? She grows up more slowly, she's more delicate, right? She has these strange ears, right? She has this strange hair, and so she's bullied, right, and victimized for being different, and then, right, the moment when the magic comes out. And this changes everything when she's like, oh, I can do magic, right? Mm-hmm. Which ties back into who her father is and all these sorts of things. But I wanted to start with that sort of very classic idea and then explore it for a long time. I wanted to kind of live in it and breathe in it and let it settle. Have you, at some point, have you watched The Green Mile?
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, yeah, for
Stephen
sure.
King.
Yeah.
So this is this 3-hour movie set in this prison. And one of the reasons it works so well is that you just kind of live there. Yeah. And you get to know the guards and the prisoners. Right. And I wanted to do something like that, where I spent a lot of time with some of these characters and in some of these places and build it slowly. And so early on, it's these stories of childhood, being bullied by other kids, wanting to know, why you don't have a father. Does he even know you exist? Did he abandon you? Did you ruin your mother's life? All of these sorts of things. And then as it grows, at every book, the stakes increase, right? And her ability to affect the world increases. And so by the second book, when she's, a teenager and she's 15 and she's visiting the capital city, those are teenager stories, meeting other teenagers, having a first relationship, going to this, like these balls and these masks, getting in fights, starting to understand that the adults around you are politically involved and that there's higher stakes, but that you're not really part of it. Right. At least, but you can see the edges of it. Right. And then, as the story builds and we get into the later books, she more and more becomes a powerful player in her own right. And I wanted to play with and examine that progression from a kid all the way up to how do you turn into a formidable adult in these circumstances, in these fantasy worlds. Mm-hmm. And so this is sort of the core concept around Guild Mage.
There's a personal connection to the idea of age and point of view from someone aging at a different rate. Mm-hmm. Do you feel comfortable sharing kind of the personal connection you have to the story and the idea as well?
Yeah, we can talk about this a little bit. I'll be a little careful about what I say, so I don't. Right. So my son is 10 years old at this point, right? And he is autistic, right? And so there is this element that certainly my wife has pointed out, right? She says this some of these things feel like things that have happened to us, mm-hmm. Where in some ways, he holds on to being young longer.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That he's so incredibly smart about so many things, and he's reading adult books about evolution and, what have you. But when it comes to social emotional growth and interacting with peers and how he views the world, it often feels like he's 3 years younger.
Right.
Right. And so I think that absolutely did come out in the early portrayals of this character in the first couple of books, that she's sort of left behind in a lot of ways. One of her earliest best friends grows up and gets married and has kids and is running a business, right? And so she's like, I've been left behind.
What a great perspective. I think that's actually really beautiful. Right. I have 2 nieces who have autism, and when you mentioned that to me in the past, I sat with that for a while and went, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. They're just on a different plane, and
they're going to get there.
They're going to get, yeah, right.
Because
yeah.
I have a ton of friends and coworkers and people that are autistic adults.
Yeah.
Right. And they adjust. They're wonderful. They're great people.
Yeah.
Right. They have careers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes it's like it took a little longer,
Thank you, Dave, for sharing that, because I think it's a beautiful thought to ponder as we read and go through Guild Mage, that there's this little seed that's just kind of sitting there germinating in the background, right, as we read.
Well, and there's seeds that come from all sorts of things,
right? Yeah.
All these little places that you go, and the initial city I had originally thought I was going to put on the seashore, and then I went on vacation with my wife and my son and my in-laws, and we went to visit her uncle in Colorado, right? Her aunt uncle in Colorado, and so neither one of us had ever been to the Rocky Mountains or anything like that before, and we loved it, right? We thought it was beautiful, and so this was happening just as I was making plans for this series, and so I turned it into a mountain town instead, right, and based it on Colorado. Yeah. And so that, again, there's all these little gems of things that go into different places.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more thing. We're going over, I know I'm keeping you a long time, but this is kind of like after school, but I'm not in detention. So, okay, you talked to me about the 5th dimension, and which no one's ever told me about this. I've never heard anybody talk about this. Again, another thing that made me just I had to sit with it for a while and think of it. And you talk about a circle and 2 feet in the circle.
Yep.
Now, I would love for you to unpack this. This will kind of be our closing as we wrap up. But I just think it's a different perspective that as writers you can really benefit from, as readers you could benefit from. But the way you unpack this for me in the past, I want to touch on it again because I thought it was so powerful. This 5th dimension. Come on.
Yeah. So there's a way of thinking about the idea of multidimensional existence, sort of beyond our ability to perceive, right? So we talk about, height, width, depth, etc. And this is the 3 dimensions we're familiar with. And if you think of time as a 4th dimension, right, that we move through, but we only move through it in one direction, right? That we can comprehend that pretty easily, right? So if we live within this sort of these 4 dimensions, how could you understand what it would be like for there to be a 5th or a being that exists in 5 dimensions or 6 or 7 or what have you? But there is kind of a way to think about it, right? So if you imagine, a patch of like bare earth and a stick or something that you could draw in it, and you draw a circle in the dirt, and you've got like ants, in the circle. To them, going up to the edge of that circle where you've scraped it out is this incredible barrier. It's this trench, that's been dug out. And if you stand inside the circle with them, they perceive this enormous thing, right? But really, they're not perceiving much beyond your feet because you exist so far up compared to where they are.
Right.
And the fact that you could just step out of the circle over what is to them this insurmountable obstacle, right, based on perspective, because you exist going vertically much more than they do. Yeah. And so if you think of this, like a 2-dimensional construct, what if you had people, and there's a book called Flatland that did this, right? If you had people who lived in 2 dimensions, right, and everything was on a piece of paper and you drew lines and squiggles and they moved around on this piece of paper, that they would have no idea what happened when a finger came down,
Yeah.
or a pen, because to them it comes from completely outside of their world, right? But it's really just someone who has the ability to exist in a dimension that they don't. And so in the Fairy Knight trilogy, which is the first series I did, right, which is a fantasy series, the fairies and these other sort of multidimensional creatures are like that compared to humans. And so when humans interact with them, they may appear and disappear, go from one place to another without crossing the intervening space. And to humans, it's like, well, you're teleporting. How did you do that? How is that possible? But really, it's just like us walking. Pick up a foot and put it down. But if you only perceive the sole of the foot, then it seems like teleporting.
Right. It's almost like a glass bridge, and you're down below looking above people standing on a glass bridge. You have no idea how tall they are.
All you can see is the soles of their feet and the shapes of clothing above them. Yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
So that's a really fun way to think about things.
That's fascinating. That's really good. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, again, I like talking to teachers. You make me think. And that's a good thing. So, excellent.
Yay.
So, Dave, for people who want to follow you, the pre-order's out now for Coral Bay, but there's more coming. Where would you like to send everybody? I think there's probably people interested in being part of your community as well and participating. So there's a lot of opportunities. Where would we like to send everybody?
Probably the two easiest places to go are Patreon and Amazon.
Okay.
Right. And so if you're looking to buy things, you go to Amazon. It's my author page there. But if you want to get involved in the community, you want to go to probably Patreon, and that'll get you into Discord or the Patreon discussions, things like that. Excellent.
I love your connection with your community. I love that you build in public and that you take us along for the journey. And then we can celebrate with you when the book comes out. We got it. It's ours. It's great. You've given us a lot of insight, Dave. I really appreciate you being here.
It was wonderful to come on.
Your students are lucky to have you. And the fact that you would talk about Princess Bride, I'm going to audit the class and just drive down there and just hang out for that, because that'd be a lot
Drive on down to Wolcott, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just commute, no problem, right? They're like, who's this old guy, Dave, in the class? Yeah. Well,
in the back of the room.
Another Dave. Yeah. Anyway.
Don't worry about it.
He's a Canadian. He's fine. Yeah. Awesome, Dave. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'd love to have you come back in the future. There's a lot more I'd like to talk to you about.
Oh, sure. Anytime.
Excellent. Great. We'll hold you to that. Everyone, you want to meet a great teacher who, again, has a fabulous beard and great stories. His stories are as long as his beard.
Oh, I like that.
Then there you go. The wise sage Dave has been here, and make sure you go check him out. Leave a great review so he can see that on the back end of Amazon. Read his Kindle books to the end and tell 10 people about Dave. That would be really helpful. Dave, thanks so much for doing it.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.